Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903.
As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor, and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
All right, joining me now for multiple times on the Jenna Ellis Show. She is one of my favorites, and bringing her back on again is Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who continues to make waves in Washington, and good waves, not just red waves, but freedom-loving waves. So thank you so much, Congresswoman, for joining me again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jenna. I always love coming on your show.
Thanks so much. And these conversations are so important. And you recently told the Washington Times that you think this civil war within the GOP is absolutely necessary so that freedom fighters can take over the conference and actually be a conservative party, not just this weak GOP. And that is something, obviously, I totally applaud. So what is the status in Washington, and how is the party really reacting to what externally people are saying is infighting, internally we know is necessary?
Well, there's not been a whole lot of discussion on the actual topic of a GOP civil war within our conference, but we are battling ideas. And I think it's so important for us to do that because iron sharpens iron. If we don't challenge one another on how to overcome the failures of the past, then the Republican Party will never be the party that truly represents its base and truly never represents the American people, and will never fight the fights that must happen in order to save our country from the communist Democrats. And so this is, there's always been this rule, the 11th commandment that Ronald Reagan had laid out there when he was running for governor in California and then running again for president of the United States. And we all love Ronald Reagan and remember him as such a great president and a strong Republican. But the 11th commandment is something I don't believe in. I only believe in 10 commandments, and that's because of my Christian faith. But I do believe in helping change the Republican conference here in Washington, and that means holding them accountable and pushing them harder to be the Republican Party that our voters really need us to be.
I think that's just so common sense. I don't quite get how people think that just because there are two parties, then just because someone identifies as a Republican, I mean, this is pure identity politics, right? Just because you identify as a Republican doesn't mean you actually are one. Just like if you identify as a woman doesn't mean you actually are one. And so to have this kind of pushback of saying, well, you can't criticize as a Republican anyone else who shares that same label doesn't make sense at all logically. And also for people who are genuine conservatives, it doesn't make sense that we wouldn't criticize actions of others even within our own party and within conservatives by saying, no, hang on, we all need to be accountable to the same set of principles. Because as President Trump always said, it's country over party. And I would go a step further to say it is principles of freedom and liberty over party as well.
Yes, absolutely. Jenna, I think you just nailed it right on the head. And we're always grateful for President Trump and how he taught all of us what America First policies truly look like. And he also showed us how to fight for them, right? And this is what we have to have happen. The Democrat Party is no longer an American party. They've turned so far left. They have fully exposed who they are, and that is Marxist and communist. And the Republicans, yeah, we do have Republicans in our mix that align themselves much closer to Democrats, or truly Democrats completely, than we ever want any Republican to act like or vote like or even legislate like. I'll give you a perfect example, and that's Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is the leader of the Republicans in the Senate, and he is a complete failure. He's such a disastrous leader, and all he's doing is helping Joe Biden. You know, all of Joe Biden's nominees are sailing through the Senate. Mitch McConnell's doing such an incredible job just working right along with Chuck Schumer to make sure that Joe Biden's agenda can quickly sail through so that Nancy Pelosi can pass it as fast as possible in the House. We're working to vote against it, but we're completely outnumbered. And you know, it's Mitch McConnell who just came out, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, and he was talking about January 6th, calling it a violent insurrection. Well, news for Mitch McConnell, there has been no one charged with insurrection, Mitch. And it was Mitch McConnell that failed Republican voters by not caring about their votes, by doing nothing about the election and totally turning his head and welcoming Joe Biden in as president of the United States. You know, here's what we have to do. We have to work very hard to get the Mitch McConnells out of leadership positions. And then when they come up for re-election again, we have to make sure that we beat them. And it's primary season right now. And it's also rhino hunting season. So I encourage people all over to make sure that you're supporting a true America First candidate, and that people in districts are working hard and supporting them and helping them get across the line. You know, I'm always so helpful, Jenna, for the people that help me and donate to me at mtg4america.com. And it's all those small dollar donations that help me, because I don't take big donations from PACs and lobbyists and big corporate interest donors. But here's the thing. If we don't fight in our conference, Jenna, like we're fighting right now, if I'm not willing to fight with Dan Crenshaw when he says he wants to use FEMA for COVID testing, or put FEMA in hospitals where they fired unvaccinated healthcare workers, if I'm not willing to argue with him on those points, then what good am I doing my district, and what good am I doing the voters that sent me here to fight against policies like that have failed Republicans across the country?
Exactly. And that's what everyone loves so much about your stance, and that you are a freedom fighter, because, you know, with friends like Mitch McConnell and Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney and Dan Crenshaw, who needs enemies, right? I mean, it's like we have to make sure that the conference is standing up for the principles of what the America First what the voters actually want, as you said, your constituents. And I think that speaks across America. We're seeing this clash that nobody really wants rhinos, but nobody's actually willing to call them out and say, you know what, we don't like them, but at the same time, when it comes down to it, are we going to primary them? Are we going to speak out? Are we going to actually put our money where our mouth is? And so one of the endorsements, though, I have to ask you about, because this one actually surprised me from you, is J.D. Vance. And he, of course, was a former Never Trumper and has not been endorsed by President Trump. There's a lot of speculation that the president doesn't want to get involved in the Ohio race. I've, of course, endorsed Josh Mandel after speaking with both him and Vance. I didn't even speak with Timken. Moreno is now out. So, you know, that's kind of a very interesting U.S. Senate race out of Ohio. But my perspective was that Vance, you know, is really kind of just in the pocket of McConnell and in the establishment, and is going to go along with the rhinos in the Senate. And Mandel has been a freedom fighter. He's talked about election integrity. So what was your reason for endorsing Vance?
Yeah, Jenna, I did the same thing. I talked with Josh Mandel multiple times, as well as J.D. Vance. Also read both of their opposition reports, looked into polling, and then I talked to people in Ohio about what they think about both of them. And yes, while J.D. Vance, he was a huge Never Trumper, The one thing that really impressed me about JD is he was one of those true conversions. He absolutely became a true Trump supporter after seeing President Trump's policies and actions, and he's never turned back. And then what bothered me about Josh Mandel is he was a Trump supporter early on, but when the Hollywood Access tape came out, he turned his back and ended up voting for Marco Rubio. And so to me, those are the things I don't like, the on again, off again, and those really bother me. But I'm very happily supporting JD Vance. I've gotten to know him, and he bashes Mitch McConnell probably as much as I do, and maybe even more. So I'm very excited and hoping that I can help get him across the line where he'll go in the Senate and do away with a Mitch McConnell leadership in the Senate, and then help to push forward a Senate that's an America First Senate for the American people.
Well, and I mean, I don't share the same confidence that he's not still a never Trumper and just kind of playing to the base, especially with his very recent Time interview where he said, I kind of have to go along with this just to get the votes. But I hope that either way, and of course with Mandel, he's seen Trump's policies, and I think is going to be a great senator if he gets in. But I hope that regardless of which of the two, and I think it'll come down based on the polling to either of those. My hope is that regardless, and I told Vance this, if you end up being the nominee, then obviously I would support him over a Democrat. And so my hope would be that if that either one of the two, if they get in there, they will actually fight for America First policies and not go along with the establishment. So if Vance ends up becoming the candidate, I would hope that he would win, and I would hope that he would not, just ignore his campaign promises. And I have every confidence that Mandel wouldn't either. And the interesting thing about these types of conversations is that there can be a diversity of opinion, and even with people supporting different candidates in the primary, I think what's encouraging about this is that there are more candidates now in really good primaries. That's actually a good thing. I'm glad that we don't have just one person in one race, instead of saying, look at all of these people that are standing up and saying, we've got to change government, we've got to drain the swamp, and we have to challenge the establishment. So I hope that good America First people will come to Washington in 2022, like how you are there, Congresswoman, and will fight alongside you, and will fight alongside the Patriots in the Senate to make sure that the Republican Party actually is conservative in America First, because that's just not happening. And so what do you see from the national leadership perspective? Because, frankly, I was just horrified that now we have this Pride coalition with the GOP. We have, all of these other things that are not the platform of genuine conservatives. And we're trying to do this big tent going back to Reagan. I mean, he was all about that, where I disagree with that. We have to remain true to our principles.
Well, here's how I feel is I'm like, why are we playing identity politics? Because that's the game of the left. And so, Jenna, it doesn't make sense to me to create all these groups. Now, I know it happened under President Trump, where they created all these groups for Trump, right? Farmers for Trump, blacks for Trump, police for Trump. They created all these identity groups. And while that is great for marketing, I really think it's the wrong thing for Republicans to do. We are the party of conservative values, traditional family values. We're the party for freedom, and we don't believe in separating people. We believe in freedom for all. And if we believe those things truly, then we don't need to create a bunch of groups. So that's always been a turnoff for me, is I don't like separating people into groups. I like just making sure that everyone is guaranteed their freedoms, everyone's guaranteed their rights. I stand firm in my convictions, and I stand firm in the science that there's only two genders, male and female. There's only two sets of chromosomes. And even if someone wants to wear a dress and pretend like they're a woman, they're just not one. And I'm not going to play games and go along with it. I don't think our tax
shocker that is such a rebel position today.
I had no idea that would ever be something we would argue about in America. But this is the game of the Democrats, and I don't want to see Republicans playing it. I truly don't. And so, and the whole thing with sexuality, I think that should stay private. I really do. You know, it's better for our kids growing up. Of course, sex education is something that kids have in middle school and high school, but I don't think it needs to turn into labeling every single person. They're heterosexual, they're gay, whatever they are. It's like, I don't want to know what you people do in the bedroom. I'm not going to tell you what I do in the bedroom. Let's just leave this all off the table and not make it an identity. Let's just be Americans, and Republicans need to fight for our good conservative values that will give our kids a wonderful future to grow up in.
Yeah, so well said. And that is the problem with these groups and these categories, because then that becomes your whole identity. I am a blank American. You know, I am fill in the blanks, and you have to fill in your pronouns, your identities, your sexual orientation, your vaccine status, for example. I mean, I've never disclosed my vaccine status publicly because, you know what, privacy is actually a good thing. And if we actually understood as Americans that we don't need to divide ourselves into vax versus unvaxxed, that's just further hyper politicizing this issue. Why can't we have medical privacy? Why can't we have privacy in a lot of things? And the biblical worldview says we are all human beings made in the image of God, and as such have inherent dignity and worth. And that is true regardless of what type of group anybody identifies with. Now, that being said, of course, we have different policy perspectives, different ideological perspectives that we need to be able to talk about and challenge in the public square. And that's where so many of the leftists are trying to censor your ideas, to censor conservative ideas. I mean, you've been kicked off of Twitter now, which I think is absolutely insane, that a sitting member of Congress has been censored off of probably the most prominent political platform. And so you can't reach your constituents and serve them best just because they don't like the message that you are speaking. That is absurd. And so where are we at with those types of challenges to hold big tech accountable in Congress?
Well, that's something we're working on. I am glad this is happening in our conference, and it goes back to us arguing our ideas, which is so important. We are working on these task force. We have 7 different task force in our conference, and one of the things we're working on is reining in big tech and stopping the censorship. And I'm very excited. I have a bill coming up. Jenna, it's been something I've read. We've read every single bill that Republicans have. We've looked at bills in both the House and the Senate, and I have one I'm excited about. I can't totally tell you yet, but it is coming up. And
we'll have you back on when you can publicly say it.
Yes, and it's great. It covers all the areas which I think has to be done. It can't be just one or another. We have to go really hard after big tech, and that's extremely important. And then we've got to work it out on our conference and say, okay, guys, are we going to do just a little bit, or are we going to go all the way? Because it's out of control. The scariest thing that I think we're seeing today, and I think it should scare everyone no matter what side of the political aisle you're on, is the fact that big tech can decide which information is true, which information is allowed, and which information is considered misinformation. Well, the craziest thing that we saw on TV the other night was on Anderson Cooper's show, I think it was, where the doctor from the CDC, Dr. Lena Wen, said the science is changing. The science is changing, and then all of a sudden she's talking about masks are bad for children, which we've all been saying that. I think that was one of the reasons I got kicked off of Twitter. But all of a sudden now it's okay for them to say it, and this is what is so concerning. You can't just say the science has changed. You can't say that this group of people is wrong, and then all of a sudden they can say it and they're right. And so it's totally out of control, and freedom of speech is pretty much going away in America.
Yeah, and I addressed that same comment from Leah Wynn on my podcast yesterday, and you're absolutely right to say that why is it misinformation when one group of disadvantaged conservatives who are not liked by the platform, then they get kicked off for it? Why is it misinformation? Then as soon as the preferred group of the liberals and, you know, the doctors that they have ordained as their saints, now they're saying it and suddenly that's fine. There should at least, at minimum, I mean, you shouldn't have been censored to begin with, but at minimum then go back and say, okay, all of the people that we kicked off of the platform for so-called misinformation, maybe we need to reverse those decisions, because guess what? Now it's not misinformation. But of course, Twitter isn't going to do that. But in just the last couple of minutes that I have with you, Congresswoman, I also want to address Ukraine as well, and this effort from some of the establishment GOP, like Karl Rove and others who are frankly warmongers in the party. What is your perspective, and what is the inside congressional perspective within the conference about America's position on the Ukraine-Russia tensions?
Well, thank you for mentioning Karl Rove. I think he was part of the article, my op-ed piece that was recently released. That's the political class, and they're from the Bush wing of the party, and that's the party that doesn't represent Republican voters anymore. The neocons, the ones that are constantly beating the drums of war. Americans are done with that. We want our military to be focused on our borders and no other country's borders. Not Ukraine, not Afghanistan, no other country. It needs to be about America and America first only, especially with the amount of fentanyl that's coming across our border through the Mexican cartels that comes across from communist China, and it's now the number one cause of death among Americans 18 to 45. Number one cause of death, fentanyl poisoning. So as far as Ukraine is concerned, I want to dial in on a little bit different topic. Everybody's talking about borders and talking about Russia. You know, Jenna, what's really happening is this is a big argument over who's going to get the oil and gas contracts for Germany and Europe. And so while Russia had Nord Stream 2 and they were ready to completely open it and be the natural gas provider for Germany, what's happened with this Ukraine issue is causing everyone to push back on Russia for that. Well, Putin made the smartest move he could possibly make in this entire debate, going back and forth in this argument over who gets to provide oil and gas for Germany and Europe. He went and made a great deal. I mean, he made an incredible deal on behalf of his country with Xi from China to sell $117.5 billion worth in oil and gas to China. And so they don't need Joe Biden, and they don't care about sanctions. Russia's not worried about sanctions because he's able to go to China and make this deal. And they're also able to make deals with Iran. Now, here's where Joe Biden and the Democrats negotiating this are coming into play. They're trying to come in and fill the natural gas needs of Germany and Europe by shipping frozen natural gas across over there. So think about how this is working. This is a lot more about business deals and the global economy and globalism than this is anything about Ukraine's security and democracy, even though that's what they lie and tell us what this is all about. So here's the Biden administration, more interested in the energy needs of Germany and Europe than they are interested in the energy needs of America, because they have sold America out and we're no longer energy independents. This is a story that's not being talked about on the news that I would love to see talked about more. And then here's the other thing, Jenna. You know who's profiting off of this whole argument and potential scary war with Russia over Ukraine? It's the military defense manufacturers. It's the ones like Raytheon and other companies like Lockheed Martin who create the Javelin missile and many other small arms. They're the ones that are being able to sell these small arms that are going over to Ukraine. And America has spent nearly $3 billion in 2021 arming Ukraine to help it defend itself from the Russians. And so while everybody's talking about scary nuclear Russia and oh no, what's going to happen to Ukraine, there's a lot of devil in the details, and these are the details that really matter and show how corrupt the American government is and how much they have sold out our people and the American taxpayers. And this is the kind of stuff that it absolutely makes me sick. And it's not just the Democrats, it's in the Republican Party too. And these are the ways that our government has sold out our country and sold out the American people.
Well, thank you for shining a light on that, because this just shows how it's always the magic tricks of the distraction while something else is going on. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, because they want to say this is about borders and it's about intervention and all these other things in the mainstream media, while they're not telling this true story about how America is involved. And everybody is asking the question, should America be involved? Well, it sounds like we already are, and there are some very nefarious things going on that the American people deserve to know about, and our government should not be representing the interests of the individuals in government, but the interests of America, which is the constituents and it's the people of America. So thank you for bringing this to light, and I hope that other mainstream outlets will have you on and have you talk about this. And of course, they don't want to have the true story out there, but that's why your voice is so important. And it's very, very important that you continue to speak the truth. So thank you so much for coming on, and keep us posted. And thanks so much for your time, Congresswoman. Always a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you, Jenna. I enjoyed it. We'll talk again soon.
Before I go, I also want to talk about another great American who is the sponsor of this podcast, and that, of course, is my good friend Mike Lindell. He has been canceled out of so many box stores for simply standing up for his own political opinion. And disagree or not, or support him or not, it is a fundamental right of every American to be able to voice their opinion, and that absolutely includes politics. That absolutely includes issues that are central to our culture. That includes faith. Mike is such a very sincere Christian, and I am proud to consider him a friend, and he is, of course, a friend of this show. So right now, there is a special on MyPillow.com. Click on the new radio listener specials. Get deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including a great towel set, which is a 6-piece set. It includes 2 bath, 2 hand towels, 2 washcloths, made in the USA, regularly $109.99, now just $39.99, but you have to use the promo code Jenna. That's Jenna. That tells Mike that you listen to this show, you're happy that he is a sponsor of this show, and you will get great, great discounts, but use the promo code Jenna, that's Jenna, either at mypillow.com or call 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna. All right, well, 2022 is going to be a critical year for America. AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, along with their nearly 2 million members. The fight to stop out-of-control spending in the president's Build Back Better scheme is far from over, and Congress is plotting more legislation that could hurt our seniors. The midterm elections will be a battle for freedom versus socialism. Unlike liberal groups, AMAC is America's conservative, action-oriented 50-plus organization fighting hard every day here in Washington and across the nation for our seniors. So I'm urging you to choose AMAC now. You will receive all of the great membership benefits, including AMAC discounts on hotels, travels, and restaurants, and your membership will support your conservative values. So go to amac.us/Ellis. That's amac.us/ELLIS to become an AMAC member now.